people always came to me for advice. So I figured I have this knack for counseling people. But then I need to understand how to make money from this, right? So what I decided, the first decision that I made was that I was going to hire a business coach to teach me how to build a coaching business.
Aloha, our beautiful listeners and viewers. My name is Krista Ralaxmi-Ditton, coming to you from beautiful San Diego, California. And here in Abundance in Action podcast, we believe that each one of us, we have treasures inside. And once we start to open these treasure boxes, we can actually start to live our life as our dreams on our terms. And welcome to this next episode. Today, we have a very special guest from actually here in San Diego, Priscilla Stefan. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. And we actually met each other through a common connection through Rebecca Massoud, who is my coach. We have done like one-to-one coaching as well, Soulful Speakers Club where I've been. And I was actually preparing my podcast with her and then run through like one of the feedback testimonial sessions she was giving for you, actually coming to your roundtable. And I was getting so fascinated about all the stuff you talked about, like archetypes and Akashic Records, and like, because there's so many of those things which I'm also interested in. So I started to look more, and then I figured out like, wow, you have roundtable coming just like in like couple of weeks time. We didn't manage to jump on that one, but then I was like, oh, that's perfect because the next one is after Christmas. So I actually jumped on board with my husband, and we just had a little testimonial to you how that has been, because that was a really nice boost and also reset for both of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for being there.
Yeah. And just to introduce you a little more, you are such an amazing woman. And this podcast is really, really popular with women like you, superwomen who come and like reset their lives. And as you said yourself, also rebranding your life and yourself, which is never easy. It's lots of pain, lots of like different challenges coming up. But we are willing to do it because we want to live more meaningful life. And your life is a good example of that. So when entrepreneurs want to grow their business without working harder or burning out, they work with you. So intuitive business strategist and creator of the Soulfluent leadership archetypes. Priscilla's holistic and pragmatic approach to business and leadership allows her clients to live their dream lifestyle while confidently sharing their soul's work to make a big impact and increase their profit and growth. Originally from Brazil, San Diego is now her home, as she works with leaders from a wide range of industries who have one thing in common. They have the desire to create a global impact and live a life of purpose without sacrificing their time, relationships, or well-being. Priscilla is certified Akashic Records reader under the Soul Journeys method, an NLP practitioner, a healthy living expert certified by the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She also holds a master's degree from Columbia University, bachelor from NUI, and is a graduate of Tony Robbins Mastery University. She speaks 4 languages, Portuguese, Spanish, and conversational French, and also English, of course. Loves to travel and is passionate about helping women business owners shine brightly. And we will also add a little gift in the end, how people can actually find out their archetypes, and we will go deeper into that as well. But to start this off, I myself also, I have done so many those resets where I just get this strong intuitive guidance. Crystal, you have to go there, or you have to do this. And one of the big ones, which you just had like pretty recent actually, was when you were still in New York, and then actually your spirit was like, hey, maybe it's time to move, and maybe it's time to get on the other side of this beautiful country where we are. And then what happened? Like, what was your journey like? And I know so many people, they may think like one day I will live in San Diego. but in both of our lives, we live it. It's our dream right now. So how did that came about?
It took years. It didn't happen overnight, but I think this is where timing is so critical in life. I had come to San Diego for a personal development conference. I think it was November of 2006 or 2007. And the reason November is important to mention is because November in New York City, which is where I was living at the time, it's cold, right? You're entering hibernation, you're getting ready for snow and months of gray, dark, miserable days. And I remember in the hotel room before our conference began, I saw the weather forecast on TV, 70, 72, 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 77, 73. And I just remember thinking that's what I want. I want this weather all year round. And I felt instantly at home here. And so when my mom had sold her house on Long Island, I was living with her and she was moving on and kind of retiring. I was free. I didn't have a home. I didn't have a husband or children or pets, or I had one suitcase. And so I was in this in between, living with a friend in Brooklyn. And I was already, using the Akashic Records as a way to guide my life, really connecting with my spirit guides and soul guides, and just to say, which way do I go? And I'm usually so much more research oriented, but all I did was, okay, I want sunshine. I want sunshine all year round. And then all I knew was I knew two cities in California. I knew San Francisco and I knew San Diego. Of course, there's a ton of state in between that, but I was like, okay, so which one do I pick? I was like, okay, easy, San Diego, 70-degree weather most of the year, if not all year round. San Francisco can be cooler. So that was it. That's how I picked San Diego. That was it. And then I was like, okay, if I can get a mileage ticket with my miles to go from New York one way to San Diego, I'm going to do it. And it was just like flipping a coin. I called. American Airlines had a seat. I remember it was December 1st was when I called. I booked the ticket when I booked it for February 1st, so 2 months from then. And that's it. That's how it began. I had one suitcase and I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to try it out. And I had one friend here from my days living in Washington, D.C., and she was kind enough to offer to pick me up at the airport because I didn't know anyone. I was arriving at night, staying with a friend of a friend. And I stayed here for 6 weeks, and then I went to New York, and then I stayed here for the summer, which is when I met my husband. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to settle down. And that was 2015. So I'm coming up on my 6-year anniversary already. Hard to believe, living here already.
And one thing I think what really stands out in your story and what I really resonate as well is these kind of jumps actually, they really are actually, really, what would you say, stretch or also like kind of challenging your trust muscle. Would you like elaborate a little bit on that? Like, because I think in your mind also there's probably lots of stuff which was running through it, like what if this or what if that? And then, you just kind of follow your guidance and you just trust. And then actually with that trust and faith, you're actually starting to pave the road for the new future and for the new dreams.
Exactly. And I think that every time we take a leap of faith step, there is going to be that split between the rational mind. For me, it was like, why am I doing this? This is not necessary. The other thing was, this is not responsible. What do you think you're doing? Who does this? Why are you doing this? Why, and I tried to even convince myself to spend one more winter in New York. And I'm like, why would I do that? And I always loved California. I always loved those. There was something about California. It's like one of those spirit things, right? Some places just pull you to them, right? And so I was like, no, I've got nothing to lose. I was 41 at the time, single, healthy, I guess. So I just kept telling myself, it's just 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. If not, it's just a long vacation. And I really loved it here. I mean, and I came here in the dead of New York winter, right? February, which is the worst month in New York City. And so like I was in a t-shirt and I was seeing sunshine when I woke up, and I was like, why would I not love this? And so then I was like, okay. And then I went to New York, and then I went to Brazil to visit my mom. Then I came back, I got a house sitting opportunity. So I lived here for free in this gorgeous house for two months. And I felt like also I would probably meet my person here. It was just a feeling, you know? And then I met my husband less than a month of my being here the second time, and moved in with him about 3 months after that. Because then it was like, okay, if I'm going to move here, do I live by myself? Do I live with a roommate, or do I live with him? I was like, I want to live with him. And so that's where the adventure kind of, but yeah, my mind was totally going, what are you doing? But I always tell people, follow those crazy ideas. The crazy ideas are often the best ones, but they're going to challenge your logical mind for sure.
Yeah, I so agree. And in my life, similarly, I had this first time when I had the idea to travel to Hawaii. And when you live in Estonia, it's exactly on the other side of the planet. So even like to try to figure out like how to get there, like how many flights you need to take and how much time it takes, and yeah, all like the budget, like getting there and so on. So the first time also like kind of, I felt the urge, I answered, I didn't even have all the money when I signed up. And then I just kind of took it step by step, and voila, there I was. And then magic started to happen. I happened to get into like a spiritual kind of water therapy class, where actually within 3 days, I released my depth of fear of water. And then when I arrived back to Estonia, one of my clients knocked on the door and said like, hey, I heard you worked on the water fear thing. Can you help me? I had no idea, but we jumped in and we started to work. And 2 days later, she had no fear of putting her head under the water. So magic. Yeah. And then next times I got like, hey, you have to go to Hawaii for 3 months. And then also, of course, my rational mind was like, are you crazy? Like, imagine like how much would that cost? And I just trusted, got there. And then one house sitting opportunity after the other came. And it was like, I did it 3 times. So it was like, wow. And after that was actually Mexico, which came like, hey, 2013, now you're going to go to Mexico for one-way ticket. And I went for a week and stayed for 4 years. So kind of similar stories. So thank you so much for sharing. So
You're
cool.
welcome. Yeah.
And now, very big part of your life and everything you've been also created has been kind of circling around the spiritual realm and stuff. Can you also tell us, like, how did you get into that world? Because when I saw your CV, it was all like kind of corporate, like positions, this and that. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's like amazing, fascinating. And then suddenly you're doing all these like really complicated, like spiritual things. And many would probably just say like, oh, wow, now turned completely woo-woo. And so what was that, rebranding from that and kind of getting deeper into that? And what was like the impulse in you, which was like guiding you into that direction? Because I think right now, there are so many more people who are like kind of, turning that way and trying to like go deeper and figure out what was it like for you?
Yeah, it's been an ongoing journey, an adventure of faith and trust and trusting the process, like you said. I've gone through 3 significant career changes. So when I went to graduate school, when I went to Columbia, I got a master's degree in international relations, and my focus was environmental policy. So for a decade, I was working with global leaders, government officials to help preserve the planet, right? And look from the policy standpoint. I worked at World Wildlife Fund, which has a little panda symbol. I worked for the Inter-American Development Bank. But then I burned out. It was very challenging to see, despite our good efforts, to see deforestation and climate change and animals being poached. And I don't think that my nervous system could handle it. And it was devastating that I had so much of my identity connected to what I did. And also my ego liked the recognition that most people knew where I worked, so it gave me a sense of confidence, but I couldn't do it. And I missed creativity. So while I was still at the Inter-American Development Bank, I developed on the side a fashion jewelry business. I'm from Brazil. I love artisanal accessories and fashion jewelry. So I thought, well, what if I import some of this stuff and sell it in the United States? But of course, I had no idea about import, export, fashion business, exchange rate. I mean, nada, zippo, right? But I did that for 3 years, and it filled my creative side, my travel, my international side. But the exchange rate changed to the degree that my being the middleman, so to speak, just wasn't viable. And so I had to make an executive decision to stop that, which was equally devastating because I had equally put my hopes and desires and identity into it. And so then I came to what was this 5-year patch of fog and uncertainty and cluelessness as to who am I, what am I going to do with my life? I was probably 29, 30 at that point. I was living in Washington, D.C., and I moved to New York City back with my mother. And so I decided to transfer my skills, in the work I'd been doing. It was a lot of event planning, workshop design. And so I thought, well, I'll just be an event planner. And so I worked for a nonprofit. I worked then. The guy was not nice to me, so I jumped ship with the first job I could get, which was an investment firm. I turned into an executive assistant, and I am not qualified to be an executive assistant. I so value their detail-oriented nature, and I can be detail-oriented in some ways, but not that way. And so I was fired from that job in 3 months, got to the other job in another investment firm, and was fired from that one 9 months after that. But these were humiliating, like where, like you see in the movies where you leave your desk and then they ship your stuff and you're escorted out of the building. And for a high achiever that went to an Ivy League school and gone to work great places, would talk literally to vice ministers or ministers of environment to be, shoving papers and, just escorted out of buildings was just, it was bad for my confidence. And so I really was at a loss at that point. I had no sense of identity. My confidence was shot. I had no sense of direction of what I was going to do with my life. And I was like, are you serious? Like, after all that I've done, of all that I've studied, this is where I am. And so over those, and even over those years, I would do Myers-Briggs. I would be like, what am I good at? Do I want to do psychology? Do I want to travel? Do I want to do a travel? I mean, nothing that I liked seemed to pay well either. I either liked it, but it didn't pay well, or I didn't like it and it did pay well and I wasn't good at it. So I was like, where do I find that intersection? And so I came across a postcard from Tony Robbins. I decided to take a year. I ended up taking a year off. I was with my mom. I had a little bit of savings, and I was done. I was a basket case. And so I needed time to find myself, to breathe. It was a hot mess. And so I did Tony Robbins, UPW 4 days, where you walk on fire and stuff. And then I had some money from my family. So I did his entire year's program. And that was helpful just to connect with people, get a sense of purpose. And then I came across the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, again, also by accident from someone I knew. And then I decided, well, maybe, I could solve my emotional eating issues. And so I went to coaching school to be a health coach, not really because I wanted to be a health coach, but because I wanted to figure out my own eating issues. And sure, it's nice to have a coaching degree, but, not planning on it, not expecting anything. But then I thought, well, what if, halfway through, I actually did this coaching thing, no intention of being an entrepreneur, even though my father has been an entrepreneur for 55 years, very successful in manufacturing. And so then I decided to start coaching people. And so again, it goes back to just take that next step that's in front of you, just that one next step. And the next step was, well, let me start coaching people and see how I like it. And so I coached people around their health for 4 years, but it turns out that a lot of the people that came to me for emotional eating had careers that they didn't like. So they were eating as a way to compensate for the misalignments in their career choices. And so we didn't talk about what they were eating. We talked about what brought them joy and what alignment was. And it was kind of by accident. And so I kept doing this, knowing my life purpose was not to be a health coach. Just wasn't. But it did give me a clue that I liked helping people feel like they were on purpose in their careers. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this until I can figure out what that missing thing is. There's something missing. I had no idea what it is, but I said, health coaching isn't it, but I'm going to keep at it until whatever the it thing is, God knows when I'll know what it is. And then one day in my inbox, I don't know how, you know how people cross promote each other? I got an email about this thing called Akashic Records, and it was a Heal Your Body Story program in the Akashic Records. And I was going through some stuff personally, and I knew that I needed an energetic solution to not talk therapy, not, hypnosis or something. I needed something deep. And I was like, that's it. Don't know. Again, one of those things, you see it, you know it. Called the woman up, signed up for the 5 weeks. And I went, oh my God, this Akashic Records thing is the most amazing thing ever. Why hasn't anyone ever told me about this? And so after going through it as a client privately, she later started to teach people how to access the Akashic Records, which is really a way to access your own spiritual guidance, your soul guides. And so I was like, I think that is the missing piece. I just knew it. That has been the missing piece all along. And so I spent 6 months being certified in how to read my own Akashic Records, read the Akashic Records of others and healing modalities. And then came the time to practice. With each level, you have to do readings. And I was so scared of doing readings for other people, right? The responsibility of, what is my purpose? Why did my father die? Why did my boyfriend leave me? Will I ever find my soulmate? I mean, everything under the sun. Should I move to New Zealand? Will I find, do I have a health problem? I mean, I got everything, right? And so from 100 readings for free in 2 months, I realized that I'm not a medical intuitive. I hate doing relationship coaching of any kind. I'm not a psychic by any stretch, but I'm really good at helping people build their businesses. And I was fascinated by what would come out of my mouth. So 4 months in, I realized, okay, Akashic Records were the missing piece to the work I'm to do. And I switched, kind of rebranded, I suppose, out of health coaching and into intuitive business. So really helping purpose-driven entrepreneurs build purpose-driven businesses, with a combination of business strategy and soul guidance from the Akashic Records. And that's what I've been doing since 2015.
Going from that spiritual, maybe a little deeper into the business, because in one of the podcasts, you said also how fascinating is this that, when we start the business or when we become to be that entrepreneur type, we can actually start to manifest things from completely invisible world and then bring it into here. So now from that, the next step is you're figuring now out okay, how to make this business thing work. And I think so many people are also right now getting to that point where they're okay, I don't want this job, or this doesn't have enough meaning for me. So what else is possible? And then they start to look into wow, maybe I can add value, or as you love to say, contribute, how can I contribute? And then go deeper into it. So when we now have also people who are on the edge of this kind of path or crossroad and so on, what would you say helped you to really kind of root yourself and ground yourself hey, this is not just an hobby anymore, but this is now really I'm taking it seriously. I'm going all in, and I'm, creating systems and structures. Just mentioning that, you are after a year doing podcast, you are basically the first person who had a speaker page with all the stuff which you need to have there. And I was like, wow, this woman is organized, she's really serious about her gigs and stuff. So I was like, wow, what an example. So what would you say to those people who are like, okay, I think there's something here. They're all wobbly, maybe also identity crisis, midlife crisis, whatever, Corona, whatever, and then they're like, okay, I'm going to choose this path. What would be your first maybe suggestions, maybe 2 or 3 things, what they could focus to really set a really good, strong foundation?
For me, when I decided to be a health coach, I realized that it was an industry and it was a business, and I knew nothing about the coaching industry, and I knew nothing about how to build a coaching business. And so I said, well, I decided, once I got my coaching certification, that I wanted to give it a try. Honestly, I didn't know anything else I would do. And people always came to me for advice. So I figured I have this knack for counseling people, but then I need to understand how to make money from this, right? So what I decided, the first decision that I made was that I was going to hire a business coach to teach me how to build a coaching business, right? I wasn't going to wing it. And I was lucky that she was like $3,600 for 6 months. And she had a curriculum, every week we had, homework, and she gave us, material. So it was like, okay, how you build your website. I mean, my health coaching program at the time, I don't know if they do this now, they give you like a 6-month, template, website where you just put in copy. And so then I hired a copywriter. I felt like, okay, I needed photos, and I did this, on the cheap. I wasn't spending tons of money, but I also was smart about it. Like, I knew I needed a headshot. I knew I needed a business card. So I was like, okay, I've always liked looking professional, because I felt like I also had a ton of imposter syndrome, right? I didn't know if I was good at this. I didn't know any. So I felt at least presenting myself well would help my confidence and maybe help others have confidence in me until I figured out what I was doing. So I hired a business coach that really taught me step by step, what I wanted to do. And that was phenomenal, because then it gave me, okay, I got a lay of the land. I understood marketing and options and what to do. I'm hiring a copywriter to help me kind of share my message and my bio, so I could explain who I was and what I did, right? I joined BNI, which was a networking group, because I had to be out there, and I'm an extrovert. So hiring a business coach was important, and then really kind of defining what I was going to do. I had a sense, that I wanted to do emotional eating, because it was something I understood and it wasn't too technical. And then just kind of deciding, okay, this is kind of where I'm going to play in this space. The second one is that I needed some support. I needed to be around like-minded entrepreneurs, so I understood, the flow of the day-to-day of life. It's very different than working in an office where people tell you what to do and you have a 9-to-5 schedule. So I needed to acclimate to the lifestyle of an entrepreneur, and I worked way too many hours. I worked 7 days a week, like you said, I like things organized. If I did a cleanse, then all the pictures are going to be pretty and there's going to be a sales page, So that was the second piece. And the third one was I think some people need some time, to find their way and also to make money. Some people give themselves a timeline. I decided that I just needed a few years to figure it out if it was something I really wanted to do. And so I took it seriously from the beginning, because I knew if I was going to pursue it, I needed to give it everything I had. I think what was hard, though, was that I knew that health coaching wasn't for me. I knew that I had an enormous amount of self-doubt and lack of self-confidence, which you looking at me or my materials, you would never know. It was a way to mask the enormous. I felt like people would just see me and I would be oozing just fear of being seen, found out that I didn't know what I was doing. And I would tell people, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. And so it took a while to build my confidence that I could help people, that I had a knack for business, that I liked business. And I realized I really do like business a lot. I think it can be an amazing vehicle for good. And so I think those are the three things. hire someone that can teach you your industry and how to make money in your industry. Find a segment of your industry that feels natural and exciting to you, and learn what your way to make money out of that business, because it is a business. And as my dad always said, Priscilla, you're in business to make a profit. Don't ever be ashamed or afraid to claim that. And I think that's an important aspect, is to understand the structures and what makes a business a business. It doesn't have to be a complicated business, but you need to know, how are you going to bring money in? Where are you going to put the money? Where are you going to spend it? How much money is going to be left over for you?
Yeah, I so agree. And I really love what you brought out here, because so many of us, when we start on this path, we may think like, oh, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to just, come up with a new wheel, discover a wheel all over again. And then actually you actually, not getting ahead, and you may actually drown into it because you just don't know what to do next and so on. And another really important part is support and networking and all of that, which also many people, they think like, oh, I'll just do it myself. Like it's kind of like a bigger accomplishment when you do that somewhat, and also the thing with profit also, and also connection to money. And you probably have had so many clients coming to you with that issue also, like, all the beliefs around money and how we actually, so many times money wants to serve us, but we actually stop or block it because of our thoughts or beliefs or what it is, And now let's put it together. So we talked about the spiritual path and the business path. Now we'll marry it. So what would you say is the best kind of recipe to marry the spiritual and the business, and then put them together, like the way you have put them together in your roundtables and different programs and stuff? What would be maybe some tips and tools? Because even myself, having that, woo-woo background, I'm still kind of like trying to figure out how to make it accessible, tangible, so that, people who are also maybe even more rational would still feel like, oh, this can be resonating with me, or I could get help here. So what would you say about that?
So I'm going to mention here if you don't mind, the archetypes, because they really helped me. Because you were a mystic, wasn't it? I think.
No, I was explorer.
Explorer, amazing.
Yeah,
okay.
And I think the second one was mystic. So, and Michael was pretty much the same. And in our roundtable group, we had I think 3 or 4 explorers. So we were all
crazy.
Explorers.
I know. It was crazy. So let me just, if I can, just take a moment, because basically in my body of work, Soulfluent Leadership Archetypes, there are 5 archetypes. And really the archetypes help you understand your innate leadership gifts, challenges, and leadership style. And so why I'm saying that this is really important is that it really highlights what you're good at and how to then apply it to business. So for me, I'm a mystic, right? And I'm sure that you must have other listeners in your audience, Crystal, that are mystics too. So who are the mystics? The mystics are the ones whose dominant gifts are intuition, creativity, and healing. So this can be everything from a massage therapist to a doctor to a coach to a hypnotherapist to an essential oils person. It can be so many ways that the dominant motivation to lead for a mystic, what they're really striving for is to elevate consciousness and to bring harmony and well-being into people's lives, right? And so and they do that through a combination of intuitive, creative, and healing gifts. And that can mean everything from, doing astrology and mysticism, to creativity can mean actually sewing and doing artistry and painting. And healing can be everything from, shadow work, archetype work, all kinds of things, right? And so for me, knowing that I'm a mystic, it means that my dominant gifts need to be at the front of how I present myself, right? Which is also a challenge, right? Because for many of us who are spiritually inclined or feel that our work is spiritual in nature, we come up against societal or corporate notions that it's too woo-woo. It's not serious enough. It's not concrete enough. It's not serious enough, whatever the blank enough is. And then we're also afraid of judgment, of being misunderstood. I mean, can you imagine me living in New York City and saying Akashic Records? People were like, what? Akashic what? I mean, I felt so embarrassed, you know. I was like, okay, well, I guess that's just the way it is. You know, some people are going to get it. And I just learned some people are going to lean in and the rest are just going to walk right by. And so it's an inner process of befriending our gifts and choosing, what am I going to do with this gift? Do I want to apply it in my business? Do I want to keep it behind the scenes? Do I want to stay in the closet? And it's really about choosing, what do I want to do with this? And then secondly, if you're going to go and incorporate it into your business, make sure that it is in such a way that it is truly at the forefront and highlighted. So for me, what that means is that the spiritual component of the work I do is the Akashic Records, right? I connect to people's guides to provide information and direction and clarity on their next steps in business and in their leadership, right? So that is what people come to me for. That is the number one spiritual aspect. It is also, oh shit, it is spiritual, you know? But by leading with it, by not holding it back, what that means is that I give people an option to choose yes or to choose no. There's no gray area. What does she do exactly? You know, or there's something here that I do it, but then everything else is not that, you know, no. Because people will come to you for that. And then there's the coaching, which is a lot of the healing of, you know, holding space, letting people work through their stuff. And then I also use my intuition, you know, and I use my creativity to work, you know, grow the business and how I want to do it. So first step is, you know, whether you do you take my quiz or you do any other kind of personal development assessment that helps you decipher what your strengths are, Strengths Finders, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, astrology, whatever you want, pick whatever your thing is, Akashic Records, and then lean into that and trust that that's the path. And that might change. You know, some people might decide over time to evolve and do other things, but most likely, like if I'm a mystic, my dominant gifts will not change. They might change container or environment, but the gift itself will continue to be dominant. The second one is like, so I'm a mystic, right? I'm here to bring the invisible world into visible, tangible form in the 3D, right? Guidance from guides, support, using my intuition. And so I think if we're going to use, you know, if you're doing wild fit, you know, or even health coaching, then that's where I think that language can be so potent so that we can just shift the vocabulary that we use so that the vocabulary is more resonant with a particular audience versus, that might be less woo, but that is really craving or open to or opening to a more woo experience. I'll give you an example of one of my clients that was in a roundtable. She does emotional wellness at workplaces. And so she developed these circles for emotional healing. And she was calling them, I forgot, they weren't chakra circles, but it had more of a woo name. But then she thought, well, and I remember thinking there's something, it's just still a little too, ethereal here. And then she came up with a brilliant name, resilience circles. So it's the exact same thing, but it speaks to that corporate element of resilience. It's a leadership trait. It's a business trait. It's a corporate trait. Exact same offer, different name, right?
Just a different package.
It's a different packaging. So, and I think that this is where many of us have, are we selling out? Are we compromising if we shift the name? I like to think, I think it's a choice that you have to make with each situation to situation. And second, I think part of it is, can you see that language can actually favor, the opening of doors to people, so you meet them where they're at, versus feeling like you're selling out, like, oh, I have to compromise, the name of this for these people that don't get it. Well, either you don't work with them or you make it easier for them to say yes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Could you say just very, very like kind of overview style, the other archetypes too? Like, you know what? I actually even have the printout, the Explorer one here. And what really, what I loved about it is also, you know, that once you do it, you get like really nice overview. And also the pictures, like they really resonate. You know, me and my husband, we are sailors. You know, you have someone here on the top of the mountain, and you know, it says here, I lead through experimentation and adventure. And you know, myself, who have been to 30 countries, and I was like thinking back, like where did I feel most alive? And it's definitely the time when I've had and led the adventure retreats in Hawaii. So like 10 days, we are out and about, you know, most of the time in the nature. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I can plan as well as I want to. Coming from Estonia, can kind of get rigid at times as well, you know. But Hawaii does its thing, you know. We all have to adapt, you know. We have to be flexible. It's probably similar to Brazil, you know, the energy and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to flow. And then all of these people also, which come like from office jobs and stuff, they most of the time they're inside in the offices and so on. Then they are suddenly like in the middle of ocean and they're swimming with wild dolphins, which is like a dream for so many people. And then I was like, why is it so like, you know, enticing and so like making me so alive? And I realized that I'm just like a navigator and a guide for those people. Nature does most of the stuff. And then people will also get reconnected with themselves because they've been so disconnected for so many years, whether it's the job they have not liked or whether it's a relationship they have been to. And then these adventures like brought it out. There was like, not only did I get more alive, but people also, when they went back, you know, their families came to visit, like kind of like, pick them up at the airport. They couldn't recognize them because they had been just so tanned and so happy and smiling, and especially Estonians, you know, because we are kind of more reserved and like pale and, you know, so can you say some words about each of the other archetypes? So it's kind of like a little introduction, and then we'll do this special gift page where they can access the quiz.
Yeah, so there are 5 Soulfluent leadership archetypes. Each archetype helps you understand your soul's language of leadership and contribution by highlighting your dominant gifts of leadership, your dominant motivation to lead, and leadership is defined as contribution, as well as your challenges. I call it your kryptonite, right? And then giving you more insight. And the Soulfluent Leadership Business Guide is coming out in a couple of months that will show you how for your archetype to integrate your archetype into your branding, your messaging, your business model, team building, and so on. And that's going to be available. I'm so excited. As well, it's going to be available for all of you roundtables participants as a gift, and then for purchase, a hard copy and Kindle. So 5 archetypes: the mystic, the visionary, the explorer, the strategist, and the divine feminine. So I mentioned the mystic, right? Intuition, creativity, and healing are the gifts. You're here with a motivation to elevate consciousness and to cultivate harmony and well-being. So second is the visionary. The visionary is the disruptor. They are here to change how we do things. They change the status quo, and they're highly innovative. I'll give you an example in the book of this woman who developed toxic-free pest control, right? We're so used to toxic chemicals to kill bugs, right? Spiders and stuff. Well, she decided that's ridiculous. We're not going to harm the planet. What if there's a earth-friendly way to do it? And she went against her industry, and she came up with an innovative essential oils-based solution to pest control. So the dominant gifts of the visionary are that they're strategic, out-of-the-box thinkers, very loud, and they're really here to disrupt how we think of what's possible, and they're very efficient. Next is the explorer. The explorer is here. It is a catalyst and a connector And they're here to live their life fully by living experientially, right? You know, analysis paralysis doesn't really exist for the explorer. Like you, I have the thought, I'm booking the ticket, and I'm going to figure it out as I go. There's no, yes, you can plan sort of, but like the plan is kind of a suggestion, knowing you're probably going to chuck it anyway, right? You know that you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to figure it out by doing, not by thinking about it, right?
Yeah, and nothing will stop me.
No, absolutely. No, explorers are very much dreamers. You dream about what's possible. You connect people and ideas. You're a catalyst for that sense of connection. And you learn through adventure. A lot of explorers are highly travel prone because, you know, the world is your oyster. Nature is your muse. And people fascinate you, right? And the way that you lead is by doing and connecting with people and through adventure. The strategist is very different. The strategist uses data, is data and process driven. So think of a software engineer, think of a financial analyst, think of someone in academia or in science. They have a way to consolidate very dense data, numbers, information, and streamline it so that we can use it in a way that impacts millions. Like, for example, my husband is a software engineer. He's working behind the scenes with tons of data to help flight patterns in the United States, you know, for airplanes to not crash into each other, and to devise new systems and databases so that all this stuff can be processed, you know? There's someone even who has a school of etiquette and protocol. Like, she has protocols and processes that you follow in order to have more, to show up more, I don't know, professional and polite in your work. So strategists are very precise, detail-oriented, they're very persistent, highly intuitive, creative too. And their creative elements are often misunderstood by mainstream people because the solutions that they have go against what most people think would be the solution to something. And so the strategists are amazing. They're a completely different breed to me. I don't understand them, but I'm so grateful they exist because I could never do what they do. And then there's the divine feminine archetype, which is really about community and collaboration. Their slogan is really "Together we rise." We're in this together. And so businesses and business models and messages that really emphasize a community-driven approach to a better world, whether it be a collective or one of the people in the business guide is the South LA Cafe. Their cafe is a community spot. They do groceries, fresh groceries in their neighborhood. They give bags out to people. It's a spot for the community to come, to gather, to support equity and inclusivity, because Divine Feminine is also about causes and making sure that people are feeling like they live in a just society. And so while we all have all 5 archetypes within us, while we all may shift over time and in our businesses across archetypes, maybe you need certain talents, or your business is calling for something different. There is likely a dominant archetype, a primary one that is calling to you in your business now. And the quiz identifies the archetype that you have been leading from up until this point. And then in the roundtable, I go into the Akashic Records of each participant to see, has that archetype changed? Is that still aligned for where you want to go, or is it something else?
Yeah, so beautiful. I really recommend it because for me, it also actually brought a lot of ease. So many times I have got maybe feedback, or someone has been trying to force me into something or into someone I'm not. And then reading that, I was like, oh, that's why I'm like this, or that's why I do this way. Even right now, being in the Wild Fit coaching, group, I was the first one who tried out, free masterclass thing. And no one has even come to that. They still building their websites and doing, business cards. And of course, that's another way of approaching it. But, I just proved to them, like, I did that and 90 people signed up. So like, wow. So that's just like, I so recommend for people to do the quiz and just kind of give it the time to thought, and also it will definitely help them to maybe also set new destinations and targets.
Yes.
Yeah. And so let's finish up with one of my other favorite topics, which is love. And I really, when I heard the story, how you met your now being husband, it's very mystical, very different. And so many of us may think like, oh, like in my case also, like I traveled like so many years, 14 years, and then I just gave up. I was like, there is no man for me, like I'm just done. And then just 1 month later, I bumped into Michael and I'm like, oh my God, this is my guy. And he was not looking, I was not looking. And then we started to like, wow, we started to actually do some community work together in Mexico where we were. And we're like, wow, we are so compatible, even like, with project work and business and the way we like see life and value things. And it was just so much ease and like, kind of coming together in so many ways. I was like, wow, this is so amazing. So you have a really cool story. I would say it's a Dirty Dancing date. Could you tell my audience also, like, how did that happen? And what kind of dirty dancing was it?
Yes. Well, it wasn't that much, but it was called a Dirty Dancing workshop. So I had a feeling that moving to California, I would meet my person. I didn't know when or where or how. When I came for 6 weeks, I tried going on Match.com, but I couldn't. I just knew it wasn't quite, I wanted it, but I wasn't ready. By the time I came back a few months later, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I was on Match, but I'm like, I don't think I'm going to find someone online. I think I'm going to meet them in person. So it was a conspiring of things. I was with a friend and she was co-facilitating this. It was a conscious communication workshop and dirty dancing workshop in one. So it had this kind of conscious element to it. And so my friend was co-facilitating it, but then I saw it on Facebook. It was advertised and then it was sold out for women. But I was like, I've got to be there. It was on a Monday. And then my friend said, oh, there was a cancellation. I can get you in. I was like, great, because I have a feeling I need to be there. And so I went and I was so scared. I was peeing in my pants. I was like, I got an Uber. I was by myself. I was in a city where I didn't know anyone. I didn't know what this was. But I was like, if I don't like it, I can always just get a cab and leave, right? That was just it. I was so scared. And there was this it was in a living room in Cardiff by the sea, overlooking the ocean. It was this gorgeous kind of apartment house thing. And there were 18 men and 18 women on this, all around in a circle. And we all had to introduce and I was so scared. I said, I'm so terrified of men. I literally said that I'm terrified of men. I'm so scared. But I was like, okay, whatever, And so then we did paired exercises, men and women. Then we did communication exercises, small group exercises. And then the teacher said, let's just create intimacy by dancing, And so it wasn't anything, overly sexual or raunchy, but, it was just using the music from the movie. And so we were switching partners over and over. And it was nice. But then around maybe 2/3 of the way in, I danced with my now husband, Alex. And I was like, wow, it was electric. Like I could feel something and I felt so safe with him. And then he felt it too. And then we danced another song. And then by the third song, I said, I don't want you to change partners. And then we just connected and then exchanged phone numbers. And then we had our first date over the weekend. And then we never really left after that. I felt very safe and at home with him. And that was something that was very important to me. And then we got to know each other. We talked on the phone and pretty much just that was, became pretty inseparable. And then he asked me to marry him about 2 years later. We were married 2018, together now for 6 years. This next week will be our 3rd-year anniversary. And we've gone through everything, 5 moves, death of family, health challenges, job changes. I mean, you name it, we've gone through it. Adopting a dog and 2 cats, and now looking to buy a house. And, I'm just grateful for him. It hasn't been easy. We're very different in many ways. But he is my person and I'm his. And so I'm very grateful for that.
So what would you say to people who have also maybe lost or are about to lose hope? Like I know so many people have heard my story with Michael, how we met in Mexico. Like, wow, guys, you just kind of gave me the hope back that it's possible. What would you say to those people who are like kind of on the edge, like, okay, something must be wrong with me. It's never going to happen. I'm going to stay alone for the rest of my life. What would you tell them?
I always tell a couple things. First, I always tell people my motto is that if I just keep going, eventually the next step will appear. I just knew that if I kept holding on for long enough, and I did a 20 years worth of personal development work and just all these things, I said, if I just keep going, eventually I'm going to find them. Second, I knew it was a matter of me being ready because I was so scared. And I finally felt that I was ready. I was single for a decade. I was 41 when I met my husband. He was 54, There's a 13-year difference. And, I just I know this might sound arrogant, but because it was so easy to always put myself down and think, there's so many other better people. I was like, you know what? There are some really shitty, crappy, awful people that get married and find a partner. There's no reason that I know I'm a good person. I know that I look pretty good. I'm kind of smart. So, all I need is one. I got to try, The other key part too, that I think was very critical for me was that I had to, for me, it was important that I come to terms with the notion that if I never met somebody, I could still be happy. That the idea that I didn't need someone to make me happy. I really wanted to be in a partnership and in a romantic relationship and to experience that. But that if it didn't happen, it didn't mean that my life didn't have meaning and that I couldn't live a really purposeful life. It was like I really want it, but I didn't need it, and that was that fine place where I had to come to that sense of acceptance. And that freed me up to really be more open to the process.
I so agree. And in my case also, I went really deep. And that time I was actually working very closely with my inner family archetypes. And they were actually supporting me through it, like, because I was really like drowning into this, like, I'm going to be lonely for the rest of my life and so on. And then it really helped me to start to love myself and be happy with myself. And whether he comes or not, doesn't matter. I will be fulfilling my life missions and just have a blast. So if he comes, very good. I have a bonus. If not, it doesn't matter. I will be happy me. So that's a really good attitude to have. So, yeah. And so to finalize, I have one special question to all of our guests. So let's say one time, your time on this planet will come to an end. And what would be that legacy? What would you like to leave behind for the next generations coming after you?
I'm not sure that it's related to my work currently, but I do, when I'm asked something like this, I think the question that comes to me is just to remember that love conquers a lot and that love matters, and to choose a loving, kind response and to choose love, I think first and foremost for yourself and for others. And that love really takes away a lot of the complications and makes things in life a lot clearer, as well as our choices. What would love choose in this moment? What would loving myself in this moment allow me to choose that maybe my mind would not?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful thing. And to wrap it all up, I also listened to several podcasts where you talked about powerful questions. Do you have maybe one or two powerful questions which we can leave our audience with, which would help them to, be inspired and motivated and rock on?
Yes, we talked a lot today about really taking the leap and really pursuing those bigger dreams. And I think that really helps when we trust ourselves. So the greatest question I would ask is, if I fully trusted myself, what would I choose in this moment? And the other two questions are, does this choice feel light and expansive, which means it's true, or does it feel heavy and contracted? If there's a should or I must do this, chances are you're trying to force something. So does it feel light and expansive, which is a good choice for you, aligned, or does it feel heavy? And the third question is this for now or is this for later? Because sometimes we might have a good idea. Maybe we might want to do things. Like I knew I wanted to come to California, but that's where I think timing matters. Like I wanted to meet my husband that year, but just a few months, it just didn't feel right. It sounds weird, but it just wasn't. So it was for soon, but it wasn't for then, for the now. So I think sometimes timing, trusting ourselves, and then just remembering that it's nobody's life but our own. Only we can really know what's true for us. And if we're really confused, then really a very trusted guide or inner circle or confidant is important to really, who knows us, that can kind of be a sounding board, but also really being careful of who you listen to, especially when it comes to those dreams, because people's perceptions and jealousy and beliefs can really get tangled up. You've got to do what's right for you, and only you know that.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much, Priscilla. It's been such an honor to be here and collect all the beautiful nuggets and treasures you shared with all of us. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for having me, and thank you. I really hope that some nuggets today really will help people live their dreams.
Yeah, and you said it so beautifully also, life is short, so live a dream. So let's end with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, everyone, our dear audience and our fans. Please always remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any comments, suggestions, always reach out to us. You can find us Abundance in Action Podcast username everywhere in the social media. So thank you and see you next time, and be aloha.
Bye.